Rod's muted.
All right. Welcome back to another live stream here, the Wednesday night live stream here on Texas Football. I got a chance to see some of my favorite lead-up music there. That's my walk-up theme song on Texas Football. I'm joined by the legend, Jerry Hamilton, and joined by lifetime Longhorn, C.J. Vogel. C.J. Vogel is actually, this man, he's one of the hardest working man in our industry right now. Tell the folks where you're at right now, C.J., because you're out there once again getting them nuggets for the people.
Yeah, I just made the trip down to, I guess I'm in Houma, Louisiana, right outside of Thibodaux. I'll be at the Manning Passing Academy this upcoming, Thursday, Friday, a little bit of Saturday before I head back down to Austin for the SEC celebration. So on the way, got to stop at Decaney. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But a nice little trip over down here, and I'll be heading, I think it's Walk-Ons right down the street. I'll be heading over there for some food.
Those are some good places in Louisiana.
Nice.
The Walk-Ons by the LSU campus is a really good spot. By the way, so CJ is going to see the most Hall of Famers he's seen unless he's on a live stream with Rod and Bobby tomorrow. So we got Archie, we got Peyton, we got Eli, some college quarterbacks. A couple of those guys probably will be one day. That's awesome. CJ's down at the Manning Passing Academy, so he'll be bringing back the goods from that. I think meet with the media tomorrow, right? CJ, and then they throw on Friday. Quinn and Arch will take part on Friday.
All right, guys. So go ahead, CJ. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that plenty of other SEC, caliber quarterbacks. Of course, Carson Beck, Jackson Arnold, Connor Wakeman, all on the Texas schedule. But Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, Brady Cook. So I'll get a good look firsthand at some of these SEC arms that Texas will be getting a chance to play against and, of course, compete against in the SEC and beyond.
Yeah, speaking of SEC arms, in SEC baseball, there's a lot of talk about SEC arms, and, oh, man, it's crazy actually what's going on. So we're not going to bury the lead, of course. Coach Schlossnagle introduced as the new baseball coach at the University of Texas today. So we'll get into that. Matter of fact, we'll hear from the new head coach. We got some audio thanks to you guys there on campus. So we'll get to that, of course. We'll talk about the psychological trauma inflicted on Aggie Nation and how that translates to every other sport, including Texas A&M football. Because I think I've said before that rivalry this year, Texas A&M feels bigger than Texas OU. And I'll say now that CDC has pressed the red button and now the Texas A&M rivalry has gone nuclear. I think that's even more so the case. So we'll get into that too coming up because a lot of interesting storylines and layers with that. There's also, guys, I don't know if you saw this, there's some Longhorn related news coming from the college football video game. They're releasing a lot of details about the new college football video game. They released the rankings for the most dominant home field advantages on the game. I think that was yesterday. Today, some news came out that I think some Longhorn fans may like it, and some Longhorn fans may be a little bit upset about it. Strangely enough, the Horns Down will not be in the EA Sports video game. Not happening. They said you're only going to do hand symbols from your own team and your own program. They're not going to allow you, I guess, to make fun or disrespect somebody else's hand symbol. And I would just say where I stand first of all on this, I think it's a mistake. It's a mistake. If you're talking about the authenticity of college football, Horns Down is a big part of it, man. And as a proud lifetime Longhorn, I want to see the Horns Down in the game. Strangely enough, because that's what the Sooners are going to do. That's what the Aggies are going to do.
Look. The reality is, more people know about Texas that wouldn't know about Texas because of that. In some ways, what is it? The Hook'em, the Horns Down. All of that gets more talk about the University of Texas. That's a good thing. I hate it. It's not in the game. I hate it.
Yeah, it's in the game. That's the damn motto of EA Sports. It's in the game. No, it's not in the game. It's not in the game. You need to put it in the game. That's crazy. That's wild.
Now, what is Oklahoma supposed to do, right? Will they not even have a hand sign to begin with, Rod?
That's a great point. I don't know what they're going to do. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do.
Venables allowed to steal signs in the game? Is Connor Stallions going to be on the sidelines of Central Michigan with a mustache on?
That would be a great cheat code. If you can have like a little cheat code and get Connor Stallions on your staff and they just start stealing team signs, you know what they're going to do. That'd be a great little cheat code they could throw out there. But yeah, just want to throw it out there. Listen, there'll be a lot of Horns Down from the Aggies. They're already deciding about different tactics and strategies when Schlossnagle and the Longhorns come back to town. By now, everybody's hurt. And this is kind of how I gauge big stories, guys. Like, if my wife comes to ask me about the story, I know her timeline, and she's like, "Oh, what's going on with this Arch Manning thing, or what's going on with Tom Herman being fired?" So my wife comes to talk to me about it. I'm like, "Oh, her and her girlfriends are talking about it." Hit her timeline, and so the Bravo or the reality TV stuff, she's got some Texas sports on her timeline. And when my mom is the ultimate gauge. Because I talk to my mom a few times a week. When my mom, who's in Louisiana, she's she got a couple of my uncles that live near her. So when something gets to my mom's not on social media, just scrolling. So something has to get to her through third or fourth party. Somebody come and talk to her, "Hey, Miss Babs, have you heard? I heard your son, he's a Longhorn. Have you heard about what's going on with these Longhorns?" And they ask her, and then she calls me. And that hasn't happened yet. But my wife has already been on top of the Schlossnagle thing. It's deep. I anticipate next time I talk to my mom, I will get a question about what's happening with Texas baseball. Just because that's how I kind of gauge how big it is. So here's the question I have for you guys. Because, yes, the last 48 hours have been epic on social media. So I want to start there. Have we had a bigger event on social media for Texas sports fans than the Schlossnagle ordeal?
Not even close to me. I don't know. Look, because I can't even think of anything like this in college sports. And it would be like, it would seriously be like Nick Saban retiring at Alabama and Hugh Freeze being hired by Alabama and leaving Auburn. I mean, it's vitriol like you just can't imagine. So no, because I mean, it's wild. Just from a national media, everybody's trying to get their clicks off of this, right? The only thing that would be bigger than this on social media is if Arch Manning ever transferred from Texas.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Okay, right. That might be.
Yeah.
Because everybody be trying to get their clicks. But, I mean, this has brought out everybody trying to get their clicks, man, and their retweets and their likes. And, I mean, it's hyper. I mean, it's hyper. I think there's been people saying I've logged off the Twitter for a month. I'm back on now. I mean, there's a lot going into this. And I will say this. I've never, I don't want to say never. Maybe the last year that Texas and Texas A&M played when A&M was moving into the SEC TexAgs and your Texas message boards were kind of hyper. This is the first time since then that they both have been hyper on the same subject.
Yeah. I think we got a little bit of a taste of this when Texas took Chris Beard from Texas Tech, right? But the Red Raiders weren't, 6 outs from a national championship that previous season. Of course, that had, some shockwaves through the sport. But again, with the freshness of it, with the way in which the tenure ended at Texas A&M, a little bit more of, some bad blood there with how quick Schlossnagle took over this Texas job. And of course, with Texas moving into the conference with Texas A&M, it certainly adds to the chapter of what will be a pretty interesting rivalry book between Texas baseball and the Aggies once SEC play gets going. But again, for Texas, and we should bring this up, we'll get into the coaching hires and everything. Kurt Bowles from the now Houston Chronicle reports earlier before we got on. Troy Tulowitzki will not be brought back to the Texas baseball program in 2025. He had been a guy that was one of the larger attractions to the Texas baseball program in previous years. But hey, you have your coach and you have your whole staff from Texas A&M, which were all very, very talented and instrumental to their run this year.
Hey, Rod, let's be real clear about how bad this has been for Texas A&M.
Yeah.
College World Series Championship Series, win game 1 over Tennessee. You're a win away from your first major sport national championship since 1939. Up in the 7th inning of game 2, lose it. Game 3, lose by a run. Coach leaves 24 hours later.
Wow.
That's rough. That's a rough 3 days. And so they're at hyper warp speed pissed off. Like they're passing all of the 5 degrees. I don't know where they're at on them, but I think the anger is going to stay a long time.
Yep.
And Billy Lucci actually was on the Paul Feinbaum show today, and he actually thinks that when Texas plays at A&M in baseball next year, it may be as fever pitch as the football game.
Could be.
If that's the way the Aggies are thinking now, that's wild. I mean,
Yeah.
but I think everything just went amped up times 100. Football, baseball, all of it.
Well, because
we'll see where that game is scheduled, right? You know, the Aggies get Texas first in football. Does the conference give them that same kind of tip of the cap in baseball as well for that first series? I would imagine those ratings would be sky high. If so, they will be either way. But in College Station, that's going to be a pretty attractive ticket.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And guys, I will go as far as to say, I don't know if there's ever been a more devastatingly diabolical blow
Yes,
that has been landed on either side of this rivalry in the history of it. I'm talking about just Texas A&M, not even just football.
Agreed.
Either side in any sport than what CDC just did. The psych, because when you think what you just obviously broke down there, Jerry. Of course, you talked about it on the surface level of what Texas did, but then go think about it. I mean, this is their first time competing in a major championship series game since 1939. So you basically, as CDC, the timing of the David Pierce announcement, you took away the build-up and the lead to that epic, iconic event for them. So they didn't get to enjoy that because now they're paranoid about their coach and talking about their coach. And everybody's discussing Texas instead of talking about the great season that Texas A&M has had. And then even the after, kind of the afterglow, if you will, of a team that lost. Remember how Texas lost in the Sugar Bowl to Washington? And at first you're a little upset. Then you go through the stages of grief really quickly. And then you have acceptance. And you go, man, what a great season. Man, Sark is a hell of a coach. Man, Quinn coming back. You start looking at the bright spots, glass half full. Essentially, he took that away from him too. Like there's been no reflection to enjoy the journey for the Aggies. Not only did he take away the build up to it and the lead up to it, he took away some of their headlines and a little bit of their mojo there. But then afterwards, when you're supposed to be enjoying your first championship season, at least your first runner-up championship season since the 1939 or whatever, nobody's talking about that. Not even the Aggies. They can't even talk about it. They can't even reflect on that. He took that away from them. That to me means CDC, he has gone up to a level of hatred now as probably one of the most hated figures in the history of Texas A&M sports. I don't know how high he is, but if there's a top 5 list now, CDC's in the top 3 of that list. He needs to wear a black hat when he goes to down to Aggie Lane. Just wear the black hat, bro, so they'll know who you are because you are that guy now.
Hey, is it fair to say too that the anger hasn't even reached the pinnacle, height yet? Because here's the crazy thing: 12 A&M players in the portal now, CJ.
Yep.
If 7, 8, 9 of those guys make their way to Texas, that means a lot of jerseys A&M fans were wearing of players left the program and went to Texas. That adds another dimension to this too. If those top 3, 4, 5 guys in the portal from A&M's team, 2 guys that are probably first-round picks, one that could be a top 10, 5 pick, if those guys end up in Austin, I think it goes to another level than we're seeing right now. Because not only did Schloss take the entire staff,
Man,
he took the entire team.
8 of the starting 9 are either graduated or in the portal off their starting lineup.
wow. Man.
If more than half of those guys end up at Texas, whoa. I don't even think we've reached the height of anger at that point.
I hope this doesn't go over everybody's head, especially y'all too and the folks in the chat. I hope there's youth out there that understand this, but the Patrick Star meme from SpongeBob, why don't we just pick it up and move it over there, is exactly what it feels like Schloss is doing with this, his baseball program right now. Of course, we've got the full coaching staff. You take the best coach, pitching coach in the country, development, hitting coach. We saw what the Aggies could do behind the plate. Now, it's just all about waiting what's coming out of the portal and beyond just Texas A&M. Blake Monroe and I have Blake's done a tremendous job at covering all of this at On Texas Football. He and I have unearthed some guys that Texas is also pursuing outside of College Station, some all Ivy League names, some all Sun Belt names. Of course, they'll certainly be active with other SEC players as well. And, of course, Texas, there it is. That's exactly it. Pick it up and move it over from College Station to Austin, Texas. And I certainly believe that is the way that Texas is going about this rebuild in baseball, and it's going to be something Texas fans look back on and say, this was great, and A&M fans are going to try to block out of their history books.
Yeah, and the other piece, the final piece to it, guys, say those guys, a lot of those guys transfer to Texas. Say Texas wins it all next year.
Wow. with basic Aggie design, with the Aggie blueprint, and all the players
that lost in the national title last year. Could you imagine how that story could end?
Wow.
And how I don't think we've reached the height of the anger yet. I mean, I think this last 24 hours has been so emotional, but I still think for A&M fans, I mean, they're talking about what Lavalette, CJ Vogel, as being one of the best players to ever wear the maroon, right? If that guy transfers to Texas, that's the day and age we're at in athletics, though, Rod. I mean, but that would take it to another level, I think.
Jerry, where are we right now in the 5 stages of grief for A&M fans?
I just think anger is going to last forever.
They might not get back because they're going to keep that anger at least until they play in football. I mean, then they got to play in baseball, so they're going to have it then and ratchet it up. So you're talking about they're going to keep this anger at least for the rest of the year. It's mine because they're going to play Texas at the end of the season in football. And I will say this, I've been saying for a while, I think that this year, the Texas A&M game feels bigger than Texas OU. It won't be that case. It won't be the case, after that. But this year just feels bigger because they're bringing the rivalry back. There's no question now because of what CDC did. It's gone up to a whole nother level. That game's going to be big for a lot of different reasons. I hope the Aggies are good, but even if they're not that good, it's still going to be a big game because of the vitriol and angst. But can we talk about CDC real quick? And then we'll get into, obviously, Schlossnagle and him being introduced as the Texas head coach. We'll hear some audio as well. But CDC, he always has a nice little anecdote to tell about, his coaching hires and kind of the journey and everything. And this time he had the cemetery anecdote that he went to College Station and he went to a cemetery to kick it because he figured nobody's going to recognize me at a cemetery in College Station. If I went anywhere else, a fan, somebody snap a picture, see that, Texas up to something no good. So he was in the cemetery. I think what was the Chris Beard thing? Was it McDonald's randomly?
It was McDonald's, yeah.
PPDs. Yeah. Man, this dude is unbelievable. I love that. And also, it's brilliant, by the way. There you go. Some people don't even get the photo because they didn't hear the press conference, but that's why the photo went viral. And that's why.
By the way, we need to check. Is that the most likes he's ever got on a tweet? Because that's unbelievable for this.
That's a great point. We got
that's going over 1 million.
It's incredible. What a story, that anecdote, Rod. I was driving on the way through Houston at the time that the press conference was going. I almost had to pull over to see just what was going on with his storytelling. And, of course, hearing Schloss kind of say, he was there. Hey, also credit to Aaron Hogan. Last night on the Longhorn Livestream, he mentioned that was one of the reasons that this conversation with Schlossnagle and CDC happened so quickly. W.A. Jones, he was probably also checking out the future hopes and dreams of A&M baseball at that cemetery as well. But that incredible job by CDC to get this done so quickly and to just completely reinvent the future of Texas baseball. Texas now sits with a top 2, top 3, top 1 coaching staff in all of baseball at the moment.
Yeah, he was in that cemetery like one of them ghouls or goblins, something scary out there. That Aggie fans, they're gonna be scared of CDC for a minute because that's the scariest thing I can think of. The way that he decimated that baseball program. You're right. Maybe it was fitting that he was in a cemetery, as the person in the chat mentioned that. Hey, he's celebrating the death of Aggie baseball because it certainly seems like, at least for the time being, that was a death blow. I'll say this before we get some of the questions. I know we're going to get some recruiting as well. We got some audio that we're going to play from Coach Schlossnagle. You guys are maybe better historians than myself, and I know you pay a lot of attention to college basketball, Jerry. You're dialed in. CJ, I know you're pretty dialed into college baseball. When was the last time we saw a rival in a major sport poach another head coach's rival in one of the major sports?
Rival, not as much, but hey, we saw similar outrage, 2 years ago when USC said, no, Lincoln Riley, you're coming out west, and we still see it, right? What's the Tebow acronym that we see OU fans throw out almost as much as they say thank you and please? It says, that's as heated as I've seen a fan base in recent memory for a jump from heated rival to another heated rival. Oh, man, I can't imagine it's happened very often, not to this level in which we just saw a coach leave a national championship contending team to a team that didn't make it to Omaha. Doesn't happen often. That's the answer I would say.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I can't recall one. Now it could have happened in baseball. I can't recall one though. I mean, I'm thinking basketball. No, no. I mean, the closest thing, but I think he took the 2-year hiatus was Nick Saban from LSU, Dolphins, and Alabama.
Right.
That one had and then he went on to win 6 national titles at Alabama.
Yeah.
That one stung for 15 years in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But again, he went to the NFL first. So Bill Belichick from New England to the Jets.
That's actually, you know what? You might be right about that in terms of a division rival, because there's not a lot of examples of this. Rival, it doesn't happen with rivals. Blue blood to blue blood. We've seen that Roy Williams, right? He did the jump, right, to North Carolina. We've seen Lincoln Riley, you just brought up, but I just can't remember it happening in a rivalry, and in a major sport. So this I think will be studied, guys, in the kind of lore of sports history. This was a coup unlike any other. It was a very unique coup. And as Jerry mentioned, it's still going on because of the players. That's what makes it unique to this era with the transfer portal. I mean, this thing is wild on a lot of levels. And Texas is the beneficiary of it, of course, and give CDC credit. And I'll give CDC and Kevin Eltife and Jay Hartzell some credit too before we listen to Coach Schlossnagle. Guys, have you noticed how information is better controlled now with this holy trinity behind the scenes? I mean, you're in that business, Jerry. So are you, CJ. You guys obviously have great contacts and sources. But, back in the day, think about the Nick Saban rumors about coming to Texas and how divided the family was back then. So because there were a lot of people serving their own agendas, right? Serving different masters. It does seem like now BB's in a box. Everybody's on the same page. So you don't get a lot of information leaking out about these huge monumental stories. Texas to the SEC, Texas hiring Schlossnagle. When it drops, it drops. But it's tough to get a lot of information from it because ain't a lot of leaks around there, man. They're truly all in unanimity in the same cause.
Hey, Rod, Jerry, I want to take a page out of your book. This is from Blake Monroe and I, but for Texas baseball. I
like it.
We got the first one. The first one's in the bag. It's waiting to go public. Blake Monroe and I have been all over this one, and it's posted up on the site at ontexasfootball.com right now.
Wow. By the way, for those that aren't paying attention, and you shouldn't be, it's the worst NBA draft in history. Ron Holland just went number 5 to Detroit.
Sure did.
I mean, good. Congrats to Ron Holland, man, for going number 5 to Detroit. And I mean, nobody's paying attention to the NBA draft. Reed Shepherd went to the Rockets at 3. For those that follow the draft, which that means Rockets couldn't get a trade with the Suns for Devin Booker or KD because they're keeping Sengun. If they would have drafted Donovan Clingan, they probably would have had a trade with the Suns on some level. For those that are loosely following the NBA draft.
That's why he's the man. All right, before we hear from Schloss, my man CB wants to know, Jerry, CJ, how many guys does Schlossnagle bring with him? A certain major leaguer's son? Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that's been tossed up a couple times behind the scenes. I know that name's been one that I've heard several times in contention to return home. Remember, he is from Lake Travis, so he's one as well as a infielder from Texas A&M that we actually just threw up a high for. We'll see how many more. A couple arms are in contention as well. I think the big name everybody's waiting for and perhaps hoping for might actually be headed to another SEC school. But Texas is going to do very well adding some really, really important names to their roster, to their lineup, and to, more importantly, their bullpen and their starting rotation.
All right. Thank you there, CJ. All right. Before we move on here, let's thank our fantastic sponsor here for our Wednesday night live stream, Andy Ludicky. We appreciate him. If you're looking to diversify, you may be someone like me that has their hands in multiple businesses. Well, Andy can help you diversify by finding you businesses that will fit your time allotment and all of your financial goals. If you're stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over your money and the money you can make or your schedule in general, call Andy. He will take you through a process to help you find a business that will fit your skill sets and financial goals. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your destiny, please call Andy today or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net or give him a call. Number on screen, 404-973-9901. That's andy@myperfectfranchise.net. So thank you very much to Andy Ludicky for sponsoring this Wednesday night live stream. All right, gentlemen, let's get to this sound audio that we have. Please, Matthew, would you pull it up for us? We obviously talked about Coach Schlossnagle making the move today. He was announced, officially introduced to the Austin media. And here's Schloss. Actually, I believe the question is in here, but here's Schloss in one of the more interesting tidbits from the press conference.
Coach Schlossnagle, Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com.
Welcome.
Thank you. Coach, on Monday night, you said that you went to Texas A&M with the idea of it being a last job. And then you said that your mind hadn't changed beyond that. So number one, what changed? And then number two, what would you say to those Texas A&M people that supported you that feels like that you intentionally misled them?
Well, I didn't intentionally mislead them. And that's a very fair question for you to ask because that is what I said. In that moment, that's exactly how I felt. At 50 years old, you got to understand, and Chris would probably back me up on this, I love TCU. My children grew up there, Fort Worth. I was there 18 years, and it had to be a very unique situation for me to leave that at 50 years old. I love Coach Garrido, but I hope I get to coach here for a long time, but I don't really have any plans on coaching to 75, 78 years old. So I made that choice because it aligned both personally and professionally with what I had going on at the time. And I loved it. And I dove in with every single ounce of me to help A&M have the very best baseball program it can possibly have. And that investment lasted through the last pitch of the national championship game. It never wavered, not 1 second. I don't care what anybody says. As Chris likes to say, we have jobs and try to run a business on other people's passion. And if I had left Texas A&M for some other school in a different part of the country, the interesting text messages and messages that I got yesterday probably wouldn't have happened. But I get it. You can't ask for your fan base to support you and be passionate like the 12th man always has been, but really was this year. Our crowds were awesome. Awesome. Every single game. And so you can't ask for that like I did and our staff did, and then expect everybody to be okay with a coach leaving for its rival school. And I get it. All I can say is I have a career too. I have a personal life as well. That I have goals, and I just simply felt like no negative at A&M, just the positives of the alignment and, frankly, my relationship with Chris, that I knew there wasn't anybody at Texas A&M that I couldn't trust. I just know that I can trust Chris. I just know that. And as hard as that decision was, I could not walk away from it.
Coach.
There you go. That's Coach Schlossnagle. You can tell it was difficult for him, and that was one of those difficult questions because of his response to the report. By the way, he apologized to the reporter there as well about his response and saying that the reporter was asking a selfish question. He did apologize for that. But I've seen coaches try to navigate this, Jerry, and I don't even know if there is a good way to do it when it's in the worst kept secret is the coach is leaving or considering leaving. He still has the uniform on of the team that he's coaching. He's literally about to go he just came from talking to the guys in the locker room. He's about to go back and talk to those guys. He's about to talk to his bosses too. And yet he still, of course, as we all have considered changes in your career, it's one of those situations. I always call this kind of the ugly baby. This is my ugly baby theory. Nobody with an ugly baby knows they have an ugly baby. You know why? It's a must-lie situation.
No.
You have to lie. You see an ugly baby, what do you say? That baby's beautiful. You have a precious baby. It's gorgeous. Y'all are blessed. I'm praying for y'all. What a blessing. It's beautiful. Nobody with an ugly baby knows it. They've never been told it. And I feel like that when coaches are asked if they're leaving, and yes, they are considering it, and yes, maybe they are leaving, coaches are really good at compartmentalizing. You know that, Jerry. And I do think for some of these coaches, they do believe, hey, I'm committed now. I have to be committed until I'm not committed. So you can argue he was being dishonest and disingenuous. I'm not going to hate on Aggies if they want to make that argument. But I will say I've seen a lot of coaches, whether it be Nick Saban or Roy Williams, we talked about him. Hell, Mike Elko. I remember they were talking about him. He was supposed to be staying at Duke and then ended up leaving. It's really hard in that situation to keep it real because keeping it real is going to go wrong for you.
Yeah, no doubt. By the way, what was that question? Archmania, no chance. All right. But yeah, to Rod's point, the other big takeaway, totally agree with Rod. The big takeaway was CJ. We talked about this yesterday on the live stream. Rod, we haven't talked about this, but I know you'll have a strong opinion on this. Coaches, when they leave, a lot of times it's because of the people above them that they're not as comfortable with as the place they're going. That is so much more. Yes, you maximize your contract possibility when you exit, as you should, and your assistants, they should get raises. You should maximize every part of that. But a lot of times these guys don't just leave for the money or the opportunity. If things have changed from when they were hired and that situation is different, they're going to go somewhere that they feel like is more trustworthy. And he said it without saying it in that clip.
Yeah.
You can tell right away with the way that he started good to see you again, basically, to the A&M reporter there that he knew that was coming. And I will tip my cap to the Texas Athletics Department for allowing Texas A&M reporters in there, right, Jerry? To your point, would that have been the same the other way? I don't know, but, it was a delicate situation, and it does bring extra views and eyeballs to the University of Texas. For whatever reason, we know how valuable that is to the Texas brand. But for Schloss, that is a difficult spot to be in. There's no easy way to, tell your team or even to face the music when you're not necessarily given that opportunity. And he mentioned it, it happened so quickly and word got out so quickly following that Game 3 in the national championship that by the time he signed, there wasn't an opportunity for him to tell his team because then it was illegal. CDC said, what did the 5 fingers – bring that back up, Matthew?
Put the 5 fingers into the face. I like that. Yeah,
that's right. But to the point, it happened so quickly that change from Texas A&M to Texas that by the time it was time to tell the staff and players on the team, it would have been an NCAA violation. He was already that ready to get into Austin, Texas, and take over this job. There was no time to wait. And Chris Del Conte, again, credit to him for getting this done as quickly as he did. Again, it kind of did pile on to the Aggies' misery. And I don't know how many folks outside of College Station aren't too upset with that.
Hey, can I ask you guys a question? Do we know how many players left TCU to transfer to A&M when Schlossnagle left there?
0.
Damn.
Yeah, Fort Worth,
a lot. Wow. Yes. Is that more of an indictment on the College Station or the Texas A&M program? Like, what is that in Arizona? Because you think some guys would have come with him. He's bringing potentially, 4 or 5 guys potentially in Texas with him. Why wouldn't you leave? Just because it's College Station? You don't go from Fort Worth to College Station?
Yeah, I don't have the answer on that one. I don't know if CJ does or if Blake would have that answer. Look, I think what'll be interesting, and somebody's asking about, obviously Lavalette and all that with LSU. I think what's one of the interesting things, and I know we're going to get to your guy, all the recruiting stuff. We got a ton of recruiting stuff to get on.
We'll get
I think one of the interesting things will be, will some of these guys not go to Texas just because of how tough of a move that actually is for the players? Because that is the one thing we're joking around about this, Rob, but can you imagine if Matt Brown had taken the A&M job before your junior year? Would you have transferred to A&M?
No.
If Dwayne Aquino would gone with him?
No.
Now, NIL, maybe that changes it for Rod B.
It might, but
that's a tough move to make because you have friends, you have girlfriends,
yes,
you have lifelong friends there.
Yeah,
you're entrenched in that university a little bit for the. That's a different move. That's what'll be interesting for me.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a great. I got to consider that. I don't think I would have, but hell, if my whole crew's going, say all of my friends go, Max go, and Coach Akina goes, that'd be a really tough decision to stay. But I have to really like the coach that's coming in. Then I'm like, who's the coach coming in?
Right.
Who's going to be my coach now? I love this from Daniel says, taking Rod Babers from A&M was just as good. Hey, listen, I made that decision that Schloss had to make between, and by the way, same thing with Schloss. Right now, the Texas A&M baseball program is better. Right now, it's better than the Texas baseball program. When I was considering A&M, Texas A&M football was better than Texas. It was. They had just won the Big 12 in 1998. They were a better football program, record crew-wise, but Texas, in my opinion, has more upside and a better overall experience and a better overall program. And I think that's what I was looking at as a 17-year-old. And I think ultimately, as however old Slosh is, whatever old he is, 50-something, whatever it is, he was looking at the same thing. He's like, no, this is a really good place, but I have more of an upside at Texas. I have a better relationship with my boss. I have, obviously endless resources. The program, the tradition, the history of it, that's also deeper and richer. It's just same decision I made. It ain't nothing wrong with A&M, but I do believe Texas is just better, and they don't want to hear that, and that is insulting. And I get it. I'm not trying to insult them, but that's why I made a decision. He made the same decision I made. So that was 20-some years ago.
Hey. The funny thing about Rod's recruitment, if y'all haven't heard this, I always love is R.C. Slocum was Mac's recruiting coordinator and didn't know it. He told Rod to stay in state. He thought he was recruiting him for A&M, but it actually helped Texas. One thing that won't happen is the people around A&M saying, hey, you guys, y'all stay in state when y'all leave the A&M program here. That ain't happening.
That's
not
true.
on this one.
Get out of state. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Plane tickets to Baton Rouge, plane tickets to Tennessee, Knoxville. I mean, here's some plane tickets.
Yeah.
Don't
and I'll tell you what, and one of the lessons that we learned from this is what happens with your rival. It does, if not directly, it does have an indirect influence on your athletic program. I saw it firsthand when Bob Stoops won the national title in his second year at Oklahoma and what it did to Mac Brown and Mac Brown Texas football. They were comfortable. They were not comfortable after that. And the big money boosting donors made sure, but like, hey, that guy just won a national title. Yo, 10 wins ain't enough. I need you to go. I need you. And it made Mac Brown better, by the way, that pressure. Same thing happened with Texas. Sarkisian's, we know Sarkisian's ascent had a indirect or direct influence on what they did with Jimbo Fisher. There's no doubt about it. I'm not saying it was the reason, but it definitely had an indirect effect on it. And I think the same thing about Texas A&M baseball being where it is now, ascending with Schlossnagle, and then Texas looking at that program in the same state, about to play them in the SEC, and Texas thought to themselves, yeah, they got a better program. We got to do something. I just didn't know they would take the actual program, take the whole damn program, coaches and players, and just say, you know what, let's just move that over here. It is really, hey, by the way, Aggies, it's a compliment to y'all. Yeah. There you go. That's how good y'all baseball program. We had to take the whole damn thing. That's how good it was. So good job. Great job. We're the Yankees now. We just don't take the whole damn thing.
Yeah. Hey, two more things, Rob, before we get to recruiting, because I want to get the CJ stop at Decaney. The first one was David Rawls heard Rod on 610 AM right after you committed. That was when we knew Rod was going to be great in radio. Okay, but here's this one. And I'm scared to ask this because I don't want us to have a Neverland Ranch moment. But Chris Bennett says, do you remember the pitch from Jerry Sandusky?
Okay, I'll just say this.
I'm scared to hear this. Is this a Neverland Ranch moment, Rod?
It is not, but I maybe because it's so traumatic that I put it into my subconscious and out of my memory. My dad claims that I was a big fan of Jerry Sandusky. I don't remember that, but possibly because Penn State was one of my Final Five, and I believe he was the DC, if I'm not mistaken, back then. So my dad was like, "Oh yeah, you really like that Sandusky?" I was like, "Oh no, don't tell me that. I did not want to hear that." Yes, I did have some interaction with that piece of what that. So by the way, I'm so glad though. This is why God was with me, guys. I really like Joe Paterno. Joe Pa was a made man back then, and thank God I did not choose Penn State. Hell, I did not choose to be an Aggie. Hey, nothing wrong with the Aggies, but I could have went. I could have been Florida State. Was one of the choices I could have made. I would have had a very different life. That'd have been a very different alternate universe if Robbie went to one of those places. But yeah, apparently I like Jerry Sandusky. Yeah, for whatever reason. I have no idea why.
You would have ended up on a 30 for 30, which you did not. So that can be good and bad. All right,
Yeah.
CJ. So let's get to some recruiting stuff because I want to talk about the two guys that are deciding on Friday. It's two big ones for Texas. But first, let's talk about the stop at Dekaney. We kind of talked about this earlier. I've been out to Dekaney a couple times to see Nick Townsend, Tanook Hines. Obviously, we don't think Texas is making that final push for Tanook Hines. So let's talk about Nick Townsend. Thoughts from Nick Townsend today?
Yeah, I was, fortunate enough to catch the back half of that workout today for summer conditioning out at Dekaney. Of course, Nick Townsend, that number one tight end target on the board remaining for the Longhorns with Keody Armstrong off to A&M. Obviously, you have Emory Winston in the fold. Decision coming July 10th, and he'll be having a joint commitment ceremony with Tanook Hines at Dekaney High School. Of course, the decision is going to be coming down to one of four schools, basically. He took 5 official visits: Arizona State, USC, Texas A&M, Texas, and Alabama. He basically mentioned when talking about Texas, he loves Jeff Banks, he likes Steve Sarkisian, and he loved the pitch from the Longhorns, right? They threw out some Jatavian Sanders film for him and said, basically, this is the role we would have you play. You'd get a vertical threat down the field, but you're faster than that. We've seen what you can do at your size right now, which, as the Texas staff mentioned to him, his size currently at 6'3 and a quarter, 6'3 and a half, 235 pounds, is exactly what Jatavian Sanders was playing at the University of Texas. And they said, yeah, we think that physically you have a higher upside. Oh, and you also run 10-9. So that ability to stretch the field vertically, which we'll certainly see this upcoming season with Amari Black, is the role that we envision you long-term at the University of Texas. And again, this is a guy that's considering 3 heavily, offensive schemes at the moment, right? It's Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, Lincoln Riley, USC, Sarkisian at Texas. All of these guys are pitching him, getting the rock and scoring touchdowns, getting big yards, making big plays. That's all what he wants to hear. One factor that's playing into his decision, obviously, is only being 3 hours from home, as well as that, kind of connection that he's already built with Jeff Banks. I like where Texas sits here. Of course, these next 2 weeks, kind of sealing the deal is going to be very important, but the Longhorns made a great impression on his official visit. And again, that resignation of what he could be in kind of seeing what Jatavian Sanders did at Texas, that struck a chord with him after he left his official.
And there you go. Nick Townsend will announce July 10th, him and Tanook Hines. We don't believe Texas is going to make the final push on Tanook Hines, but we'll see. Things change, but that's, I think, where we're at right now. All right, let's talk about 2 big decisions coming up here on Friday. And we're going to go in order of time. Dijon Lee, the corner out of Mission Viejo, California. He made a midweek visit to Texas, was at June 16th, 18th through 20th, I guess it was, 17th through 19th, in that area. And he has a lot of picks to Alabama. And here in our industry, a lot of people think he's going to Bama. He's 6'3 and a half, corner rod out of Southern California there. But Texas is more hopeful on this than I originally thought. And I'll always say it. Look, I kind of written that one off, but I think Texas thinks they have a fighting chance here. Not saying they do. I'm not saying they're going to upset Alabama, because I do think there's a number of people that think Dijon Lee is going to Alabama. What I will say, Texas thinks they're in it. So that'll be interesting to see, because that's not one we're really counting on at defensive back and in this class. So we'll see what happens there. He announces at noon on Friday. And then so we'll see. But I think Alabama's the popular pick right now over Georgia. But I'm not sure Texas isn't in the top 2 here.
Jerry,
if Alabama's fighting somebody, it could actually be Texas.
I wanted to mention it. That official visit on the midweek for Texas to think that they're in it must have gone very well.
Yeah.
Right? He had been on campus before, but that previous visit was in January of 2023. So almost a full year and a half in between times on campus. Obviously, that offer he didn't receive until, I believe, late summer of 2023 from the Texas staff. So there was a bit of a, lull in the time frame it took for him to come out on his own dime to see the campus originally, for him to receive the offer, and then again to drop a top 4 without the Longhorns. Must have been a very, very well-run visit if he's now considering the Longhorns to this extent.
Yeah, so Justin, I want to be clear. if you just popped into the chat, that's what we're saying. There's a lot of picks for Alabama. We're not saying Texas is getting him, but what we're saying is Texas is more in it than given credit for. They could be the number 2 in this race. So if you're number 2, you're in a position to pull an upset that nobody's thinking. But we're not saying he's going to Texas. We first thing we said was Alabama is where the picks are coming from and where people think he's going in the industry. What we're saying is Texas is in this a little deeper than originally given credit for. So they could finish second on this quite easily. So we'll see what happens. And look, and here's the thing to remember with some of these recruitments, even if they don't go Texas way, y'all know Sark plays the long game on guys they really like.
Hey, Jerry, can I get your thoughts real quick on David Rawls' comment? Sharma, Lee, Manfaremo. 3 big-time targets out on the West Coast. We expect 2 of them to make decisions by the flip of the calendar to July. Where in your eyes are you seeing, Texas sitting right now for these 3 Cali guys? You just went over Lee, so yeah. Sharma and Faremo.
Yeah, Faremo, I think Notre Dame is not as solid as they once were. We're not saying Notre Dame's not going to be the pick, but he's just got a legit decision to make. When he got on the plane and headed to Texas, Notre Dame was a heavy favorite. I'm not saying they're not the favorite. They're not a heavy favorite. Texas did a great job on that visit. Josiah Sharma will announce Friday around 3 p.m. Rod Babers, this guy reminds me of Sean Rogers. I want to say that before the tape gets going, and that's saying a lot. But, look at the quickness, the twitch, the athleticism at 6'4", 315. And that frame, look, technique-wise, he's not even a butt over shoulder pads guy yet. He's not even maximizing that initial movement skills. I think this guy's got a chance to be a big-time player. I think Texas has at least 50-50 shot here. I think it's Texas or Alabama. I don't think Oregon's going to be the pick. I think the mom would move to Arlington area where she has family if he picks Texas. I think she'd move to the Birmingham area if he goes to Alabama. I've not heard anything about her moving to Portland or Eugene. So we think it'll be Texas or Bama. He has the longest standing relationship with Courtney Morgan, the GM of Alabama football, and Kalen DeBoer. So I don't know, Rod, if you got any initial thoughts on this kid as a player, but he's got a lot of talent, and he's a guy that's I think's underrated nationally. I think if he was playing in Atlanta or Florida or some of the different areas in NorCal, he'd be ranked a lot higher.
Yeah. It looks like he's pretty raw, but that's a good thing, actually. Yeah. Like you're saying, because he's got resetting the line of scrimmage, making plays, got some twitch to him, got some BGO to him. And those are all kind of raw traits.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. Upside seems pretty tremendous. How is D tackle recruiting going with Texas anyway, interior?
Yeah. I think it's looking up a little bit. I think Myron Charles, I think FSU is not as confident as they were 3 weeks ago, a month ago. I'll say that. They're not as confident as they were. So I think Texas has legit shot at Myron Charles as well. I think Brandon Brown will go down to the wire between Texas and LSU. I think Brandon likes the idea of being at Texas. I think there's still a person or two in his family in that really close-knit part of the family that likes Bo Davis because he was on him earlier. So I think that one will go down the wire, but I think Brandon likes the idea of playing at Texas. Then I think DJ Sanders, 6'4", 320, 80-inch wingspan, 10-inch hands, all that potential he has. I think Texas is in a pretty good spot over Michigan for him right now. So I think there's some things moving in the right direction, but these are all national recruitments, and you got to get to the finish line.
Yeah. No, I like this young man, though. Is it still Sharma we're looking at, right?
And Ron, here's the thing I always point out. Look how many grass fields he's playing on. Nowadays, these kids look so athletic because they're on the sport turf. This guy's playing on a lot of grass fields. You're not going to look as quick and as explosive as the guys you watch on the sport turf field, but he's still – there's some on sport turf. But even on the grass, he looks –
first step. You can say his first step is still – it's a difference maker. No, I agree.
He's a very high-end prospect. His upside is that of a high NFL draft pick. Guys.
I love the way he gets down the line, too.
Yeah.
Once he gets past off the blocker, man, you can see he gets down the line quickly.
Yeah,
a lot to like about that young man. All right, good stuff there, gentlemen. All right, let's get to some of the questions here. We know we've had some questions and some comments. Haven't been able to get to them. We apologize, guys. It's been a crazy show. How about this one from R. Gilbert 33? He said, let's say just for fun that Rogers commits to UT first. Then do we still take both Brooks and Fasusi?
that's a question about Lamont Rogers, the 4-star offensive tackle out of Mesquite Horn. One of the more, I think, wild card recruitment, CJ. I mean, he loves the Missouri and that offensive line coach. Will he actually go to Missouri? He was at FSU last weekend. He's been to Oklahoma. He's been to Texas. He's been to Texas A&M. His dad lives in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Mom lives in Mesquite. So it's a difficult recruitment for even the colleges to get a good read on, because the dad's been on a couple of visits. The mom's been on a couple. They haven't been on all of them. So where's this thing going to go? But I do think he decides first. And then you're going to have Fasusi in late August, Nick Brooks, late August, early September, mid-September, somewhere around his season. So I do think Rogers the first off the board. And the question is, if Rogers committed to Texas, would Texas still take both Brooks and Fasusi? I don't see 7 in the class. I see 6 as the max.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I actually texted with Lamont Rogers on the way up here to Louisiana. He said no official timeline for his commitment date. Of course, I'm with you, Jerry. I believe that he'll commit before Michael Fasusi, before Nick Brooks. Those will, of course, be stretching into August by what I've heard behind the scenes. But Lamont Rogers right now still evaluating everything, still going over pros and cons with schools and programs elsewhere. Says right now there is no timeline for him to make a decision at the moment.
All right, good stuff there, guys. We also got a super chat. Thank you very much, Slick Rick, for the super chat. We appreciate it very much. He wants to know, Jerry, news on Sadir. Has he been a letdown with his slower paced development?
He's behind, no question. He's behind. Look, that is when you were in December and Kirby Smart and Scott, the D-line coach, are fighting Texas a second time for Sadir Mitchell, and he ends up signing with Texas. At that point in time, I did not think that Sadir would be this far behind in where Texas and Georgia probably thought he'd be as a player. So, and I do think a lot of that is on Sadir. So he's got to have to decide that if he wants to be the guy that Georgia and Texas fought over or not. But I do think he's going to need to make a move in August, because you don't have forever.
Yep. No, that's a good point.
And I don't know any other way to say it. Oh, by the way, I do have to point this out. Zach Edey just went 9 to Memphis. It's a really bad draft. Worst NBA draft of all time. He's still a normal draft. He'd be like 28-30 to 37 if it was a great draft. But him going to number 9 is just shows you how bad of a draft it is.
That's why some team in the second round is like, man, I'll take Bronny early. Yeah, what the hell does it matter?
This draft is full of a bunch of really good role players and some guys that you're hoping become good role players. I think this draft will see some guys drafted that'll end up being some hits longer term. And then I think there's going to be some guys that are just called bust in this draft because of how high they went, because it's such a bad draft it was. It'll be interesting to look back on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I've not been paying much attention to it at all. And that's actually part of my job. All right, let's get Jedi Master Bevo says, this is for you. This is for you, CJ. CDC hire of Schloss was a very well endowed move. Yes. Show the man. Yes. Chris Daddy Conte, as W.A. Jones says.
There's so many places you could go with the wording of it too.
It is. There's no doubt about that. I like this one from Todd Lacey, though, gentlemen, since it's we've been talking a lot of baseball, of course. What will Schloss recruiting look like? This is a good one. How much will he recruit in-state and out-of-state and portal? What does baseball recruiting look like? I know it's great in the state too, but how much do you recruit out-of-state in baseball as it relates to other sports and football, that kind of thing?
It's national. Hi, Mom. I made it to Louisiana, by the way.
Hey,
text her? That's pathetic.
Mama Bogo.
You're supposed to text her when you get to Homa. You know,
he's
that
right.
Mom's
He's right.
worried about you on I-10.
That's true.
Crazy 18-wheelers, CJ. Come on.
That's
Man,
true.
Got you, Lisa.
But to the point, baseball recruiting is national. Texas will recruit out of state. Of course, there are several players in the state that they have on campus right now. Of course, some of their best players are from San Antonio at the moment, but Will Gasparino was a guy that Texas went out of state for as well. Of course, the portal was a big one. And for Schloss specifically, we saw what he could do when he has full backing of NIL, getting Braden Montgomery from Stanford to come in. The other big name that really kind of stood out to me was Evan Skowg when he was at TCU. This was the National Gatorade Player of the Year in 2014, catcher from Illinois. To go to TCU, that's not something that you see very often, especially when TCU was coming off of a 29-28 season. For him to come to TCU and trust Jim Schlossnagle, who then went on to attend 4 straight tournaments in the College World Series, that's quite a vote of confidence in terms of what national prospects will view Jim Schlossnagle as at the University of Texas. And Mom, I must have lost service from here. So,
she's telling on them. I love it.
Hey, I'm going to ask one basketball question because I have a little basketball hoops recruiting update. Will the UT men's basketball team be better this season? Nigel Robertson, I'll tell you this. I love the guards on this team. Love the guards on this team. I think Jordan Pope is going to play with better players at Texas around him than he did Oregon State. I think that dude can go get a shot and make tough shots, and he won't have to take as many crazy end of shot clock shots at Texas. Trey Johnson looks like a first-round pick. Julian Larry's a great leader, true point. Tremont Mark, obviously a 6'6" shot and taker, shot maker, shot creator, right? So their guards have more size, more versatility. You got lefties, you got righties. You can play. They're going to play a 3-guard lineup the majority of the time because of the depth of guards they have. Kendall Weaver, obviously, in that mix as well. I mean, they have 5 really good players at guard. The update I have is Arthur Kaluma was on campus. The Creighton turned K-State, turned transfer 3rd time. Was on campus the last couple of days in Austin. I believe he's talking with the Texas staff either tonight or tomorrow. I think they'll have some clarity there. Texas or SMU. I think we'll see what happens there. He would be a college 4. That's what he is. You would see Sheddard 5, Jason Kent 4, Kaluma 4. That would be your rotation. So they're going to play a little bit more like Miami. I've said this since Rodney Terry was hired, then Frank Haith, that staff was built out. What Miami looked like, that team that went to the Final Four, I really think is what Texas is going to look like most years under this staff. I think it's going to be 3 guards, sometimes that smaller lineup really attacking. So I think that Kaluma will be interesting. If Kaluma goes Texas' way, and then you can make it all work, their 8-man rotation that's a second weekend rotation, but you got to make it all work, right? Because you got a 1st-round pick in Trey Johnson. You got multiple guys that can go get their own shot. You're going to be a harder team to guard on the perimeter. You're not going to have a guy that's going to melt down turnover-wise in big games, so to speak. You're going to have better guards and more of them. Max didn't have enough help last year. That's not going to be an issue with this team. So we'll see where it goes. But I think Kaluma will have a decision here pretty quick.
All right, good stuff there, Jerry. Appreciate the breakdown. How about this one, guys, from Burnt Orange Horn? He wants to know, this is recruiting. Is Castro an afterthought now? Marco Jones?
Yeah, I'll take Castro, Jerry. Castro, of course, only took 2 official visits. He's currently committed to USC. Texas went first in that recruitment. He basically told us at the airport afterwards, hey, I got to figure out how USC stacks up to Texas. He had great things to say about his time in Austin, being able to see the city, the university, and the campus. Right now, he's looking at USC in that same boat. That USC visit went well, and I think it silenced a little bit of the momentum there as well. Also, Texas is waiting for that possible commitment from Aiden Anding at the quarterback position as well. Already with Caleb Chester in the fold. Again, Castro lengthier than what Devin Williams looked like, but flipping either of those two right now, I don't see either as a viable option right now to join the class. Of course, we've talked about Texas going out later on in the cycle and possibly using those flips or kind of ramping up the heat then. That's when I would really start to see some movement on either of them. Right now, I see Castro sticking through with his USC commitment, at least into the start of the season.
Archmania has a question that must be answered. What does CJ stand for?
That's Clay Jordan. It's a hell of a name, a winning
Nice.
name.
Clay
I like
Jordan.
that. I didn't know that. Actually.
I didn't know
It's
that.
not-
I didn't know
yeah.
that. That's what that. There you
We
go.
got the Nuggets.
Tedapari1 wants to know, does CDC have any connections to the Aggie basketball coach? No, I don't think so. How about this one? Comes from Jarrett Johnson. Interesting question. Is CDC the best hire, best hire in the history of UT? He's probably in the top. He might be already in the top 5. I mean, how many Directors Cups have you brought to Texas already? So the national championships, you know, I mean, he might be in the top 5 already, and he ain't even done.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, we love what he's doing. We love what he's doing. I think he's the best athletic director going in college sports right now.
Yep.
But we always have the but, and we always are real. Under DeLoss's watch, Texas won a national championship in football, played for another one, went to a first Final Four in basketball since, 1947? And baseball won how many? So there's still some work left to be done in the major sports.
Yep, totally agree.
On the right track.
I agree. No, it's a good point. No, I'm with you on that, but I think future seems bright. The future does seem bright for Texas. Let's thank our sponsor one more time, gentlemen, before we get back to some of the questions here. Andy Ludicky, want to thank him for being a part of the On Texas football family, but also sponsoring our Wednesday night live stream. If you're looking to diversify, you may be someone like me that has their hands in multiple businesses. Well, Andy can help you diversify by finding you businesses that will fit your time allotment and your financial goals. If you're stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you make or your own schedule in general, call Andy. He will take you through a process to help you find a business that will fit your skill sets and financial goals. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your financial destiny, call Andy today or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. That's andy@myperfectfranchise.net, or give him a call. The number on screen right there, 404-973-9901. Thank you very much to Andy Ludicky and his team. We appreciate them being part of the On Texas football family. Thank you very much. All right, getting back to some of the questions, Jim. We got a super chat from Johnny Epps. Thank you very much for the super chat. We appreciate it. Says, one game next year to attend, which would you pick? Honestly,
I've got a different answer, I think.
Give it to me, CJ.
I think it's Michigan.
Okay.
I think the more, kind of road game environments that you could see your team play in, I think that's so unique to college football. You don't have that as much in the NFL because teams rotate once every 6 or 7 years, I believe, in terms of divisions. So you could obviously, see your favorite team play at a different, venue or stadium oftentimes in your life. I don't know how often you'll see Texas play in the Big House. When was the last time it was done? Has it?
I mean, you won't see it again for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I think that's my pick. I think that's a very unique game. So even over Georgia at home, even over Arkansas and Texas A&M, I'm going up to Ann Arbor to watch Michigan, the defending champs.
That's good.
Mine's pretty easy. I would want to be at A&M next year. I just think it may be one of the best atmospheres we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, if the Aggies are, and it'll kind of be on the Aggies, right? The Aggies are a good team too. Whoa. On top of, we know now the vitriol, the angst, that kind of thing. Corey says playoffs. Yeah, it's not a guarantee you're going to get to the playoffs, but yes, I'm with you. Playoffs too. But I'll agree with Jerry on this. I think, like I said, this year I've been saying it for a while, and thank you to CDC for pressing the red button and now causing this Texas rivalry to go nuclear now. I just think you're going to have so much crossover now, just from the angst and vitriol from the fans. They were already going to be approaching this thing like some type of, religious experience to exercise the demons they have against Texas. Now even more of that. CDC is going to be public enemy number one. He'll be surrounded by it'll be like a crew of cops around him as he's walking onto the field with the black hat on. And like I said, don't let Texas A&M actually be good. And this thing could be wild. So I'm picking that one. I was there at the last one when Texas, when they discontinued the rivalry. I was there for that one. I think I wouldn't mind being there when they rekindle the rivalry. So I'm with Jerry on Texas A&M.
You know what you can almost guarantee is going to happen? And I'm making the guarantee right now on June 26th, Wednesday at 8:18 p.m. That first intermission after the first and second quarter, right between, guess who's going to be trotting out on the field to get A&M all hyped up? whoever they hire as their baseball coach. He's going to be out there. And
yeah,
be the number one guy that they use to get that crowd going again. He will make some appearance at some point, whoever it is, whether it be familiar to Texas or not. That's who they're going to be trotting out there.
Nah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I mean, and he'll walk out there with Johnny Manziel.
Oh yeah, they got to break Johnny out on him too. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, Johnny is their unofficial mascot. I mean, let's be honest.
Right,
Johnny Manziel gets everybody a little excited.
Hey, is he going to get buried at the south end of the football stadium too? Then is that how that's going to go?
Hey, you know what? Don't they have where the Reveille's buried?
Yeah.
Are they buried?
Yes. I mean, is he going to get buried next to Rivalry?
Oh my God.
And you know what, man? I will say this: they might as well. I've always liked Rivalry too. I don't necessarily like. I'm a dog guy. I've always liked Rivalry. I didn't know. Some Aggie told me that they can make any kind of dog their mascot. It didn't have to be a collie.
Interesting.
They choose a collie. They could be any kind of dog. And I was like, I wonder if they should change up dogs every now and then. Maybe that's
I wouldn't make it a bulldog for that game. We've seen how.
Don't make it a bulldog. Don't make it a bulldog. I always thought they should go with like a service dog. Like a dog that's like served, like the dogs that serve our country that are like with the armed forces, then they retire them. They should like take the retired dogs, and that should be their mascot. And that's a badass mascot. Who gonna question that mascot? It's different than a collie. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, an idea for the Aggies. But there you go. Let's get to some of the questions here. Doug wants to know, how are summer workouts going with the football team? Any nuggets, gentlemen, from summer workouts?
I posted something on ontexasfootball.com this morning. Is Melvin Hills is at 300 pounds or a shade over. So he's tracking really well. I think the early returns on him have been pretty positive in terms of developing into a rotational player, a guy that can be counted on. I think they like what they've seen from Melvin so far. And again, for the people that say, wasn't he 275 pounds? He was about 275, 277 at the start of his senior year. He was about 292, 293 when we had him on the Longhorn Livestream. That was late in his senior year. So him being around 300, that's not a stretch at all. So it's looking like his frame's going to be that 6'3", 6'4" guy that can carry 310, 315 pounds, pretty well proportioned. But he's out for the guys who have just gotten on campus. I heard he's actually surprised a little bit.
In terms of the quarterbacks, for those who we've had a couple thousand join us since the beginning of the stream, and thank you for spending your Wednesday night with us here at On Texas Football. I'm down here at, Houma, Louisiana, right outside of Thibodaux. So I'll be at the Manning Passing Academy this week. Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, both slated to throw this week. Also field questions from reporters. So I'll see what kind of nuggets I'm able to get out of them in terms of their development this offseason and what they're working on, and more specifically, how are some of these wide receivers looking in terms of some of these throwing sessions?
I think, Rod, one of the cool things that for CJ at the Manning Passing Academy is you actually get to watch Carson Beck, Brady Cook, Quinn, Arch, keep going. Dylan Gabriel's there. You get to watch all these guys throw on the same day.
It's awesome.
So you kind of get to gauge Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart. You kind of get to gauge these guys, Garrett Nussmeier. You kind of get to gauge them against each other.
Yeah.
A little bit right now. And that's actually a unique experience because you're not going to get that anywhere else. That's the cool thing about Manning Passing Academy. And CJ's going to have, I think he's going to have a great time there because it's eye-opening to watch all those guys throw it back to back to back to back to back. Because you can, at that point, CJ, you get a real feel for who's got the quickest feet, who has the best balance, who has the best core rotation, who has the strongest arm. I mean, you can just go down the list and you can pick a guy that's maybe looks best at each one of those things. Yeah. It's a great place to formulate some opinions on seeing all those guys in person at the same time. It's cool.
It's a scout's dream, kind of. Yeah. That's a good point. I thought about that. I can't wait to read CJ stuff. CJ, you always do good work, man. I can't wait to see what you got coming out of the Manning Passing Academy. Adam Lane wants to know, Pettijohn update, please.
Yeah, so I actually got a little bit on that. I think it's going to be Texas and somebody else. Who's the somebody else is? Is it Ohio State? Is it A&M? Feels like Ohio State, but we'll see. He was just at A&M last weekend. But I think Texas feels like they definitely have a shot in this one. I'm not sure I can handicap it more than that. I think there's a little bit of unknown there. But I feel like Texas, I think the thought is they're one of the two where this decision will ultimately come from.
Like that. E. Kim wants us to add to our our On Texas Football merchandise. He says, Rod and Jerry, can we get a mug that says full of Aggie and Sooner tears for the future On Texas Football store? Honestly, the Aggie tears one would apply. I don't know if they got the Sooner tears yet, but the Aggie tears one would apply. There've been some Aggie tears shed. And honestly, I actually kind of empathize with the Aggies. Hey, I don't feel bad for it, but I empathize with the situation. That's tough. Everybody in college sports understands what the Aggies are going through is really tough right now. Everybody's like, man, that's hardcore. That's a hard fall from grace, and it ain't even over yet. So yeah, a lot of Aggie tears being shed. How about go ahead?
Yeah, I want to get to this. We've had like 4 people ask. Jonah Williams, Galveston Ball. Look, I'll say this: their communication has picked up. With where it goes, I don't know. I think Jonah's an interesting prospect. Not a football only guy, football, baseball guy. I have some reservations about that. Is he a safety long term? Is he another position? But we'll have to see. Texas is recruiting at such a high level in football-only kids. It's tough. It's tough to be quality football and quality baseball at the college level. It's just not done yet. Not done much. Kyler Murray was a super freak, the only guy ever drafted in the top 10 in both sports. It's hard to do, Rod. I mean, think about
it. Used to happen a lot more, though, right? Why doesn't it happen? Why was it a thing back in the day and it's not a thing now?
I think more individualized training. And I think time-wise, it's football's year-round. These are year-round sports now at the college level. I mean, it's hard to miss spring practices, to miss time in the summer. And if you're at a program that has really talented football players, it's hard to step away from football for an extended period of time and really compete if you're bringing in the level of talent Texas is. So he's an interesting prospect. And the other thing is he a safety long-term?
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes with the recruitment, but the communication has picked up. I'll say that.
Who was the UCF quarterback that did both? He played both. He was the starting quarterback and flipped over. Is it John David something?
John Reese Plumlee.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
The last somebody brought up in the chat a while back. The last 2 that were very successful were Kyler Murray and Jeff Smarzula, but Kyler Murray quit baseball the final year. So, he was drafted by the A's. I think was at 8 overall.
Yep.
Signed the contract. And then, was also playing football, right?
1-1.
Yeah. Yeah. So then he goes 1-1 in football, right? I mean, and he gave up baseball. Even that, it got tougher. So Jeff Smarzula obviously did both the whole way through. Made it to MLB. It's a tough thing to pull off. And then nowadays, you also have the NIL part of this. You have things you have to do from an NIL perspective. So how much time is there to really maximize your ability in both sports? That's the question for anybody that's trying football. Matthew Hutchinson did say Russell Wilson did for a while. Our producer.
That's right. Yeah. Forgot
did
about
Jameis Winston ever play professionally baseball?
I think
he played a little bit on the team. He did not.
I think he was always suspended for baseball season. His doghouse started after football, shockingly enough.
That's true. He would he focused on football season, I guess. He was all about ball then.
Real quick, let me get to this one. Of course, Manning passing. I'll be seeing a number of guys throw. Connor Wakeman, Jackson Arnold, Carson Beck. Those are the 3 I'm really looking forward to evaluating. Of course, they're on the Texas schedule. I want to see how they're throwing, specifically Wakeman and Arnold, 2 of the younger guys that maybe have some question marks around where they're at developmentally.
Can't wait to hear what you got to say about Wakeman. I heard some of the Pro Football Focus guys say they think he's got first-round upside overall quarterback talent. And
I think that'll be interesting. He's got an injury history now.
Yeah.
He's had some of the missed time with these, and then he had the broken bone. He needs to stay really injury-free. No pressure on A&M offensive line.
And Jackson Arnold, who didn't he win the Elite 11? He was a champion of it his year. So there's a lot of uncertainty about Jackson Arnold, but we know he's got a really high upside. All right, I think we're getting ready to close.
Wait, Rod. So you mean the on-air contest doesn't mean you're going to be a great player after all?
No, it's like 7-on-7 translating to high school football championships. It's not quite. Not quite the same thing. Okay, real quick here, before we get out of here, Slick Rick wants to know, Jerry, if we land Lockett, French, and Kelshawn, does that affect DK Moore recruitment, in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't think those first three are going to be in the class. I think Kelshawn probably right now is headed to A&M. I think French and DeCorian looking good for Texas. Can still, we'll see what happens with Khalif Lockett. He's going to go August 7th. I think Texas will be. He dropped the top five, final five today, which was expected. If he cuts it to 3, I think Texas will be in. If he cuts it to 2, Texas probably in it. We'll see as this moves along. Is Texas going to be the pick? We'll have to see on that one long term.
All right, good stuff there. And Doug, as our last question, Doug Haywood said, what's all this nonsense about OU being broke, or is it a rumor? They've always called Oklahoma Broklahoma. I don't know if that's just a perception thing or if they've had some, financial issues in the past, and now that still is something that people call them. I have no idea, but I think that may be what Doug is talking about, the Broklahoma thing that comes up. Do you know anything, Jerry, about any financial issues Oklahoma would have? I think that's just a term people throw out there about them.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I mean, I don't buy that, CJ. I don't know about you.
I don't buy it.
No, I mean, they just want a pretty handsome defensive line portal recruitment. That took some money to get that. But aside from that, I mean, of course, they charge 70,000 people to watch a spring scrimmage. So they should have some money coming in.
That's a good point. By the way, we had this question I wanted to get to. Some people are asking about Fasusi. Look, I think Oklahoma has a legit shot at Fasusi. I think Texas is in there swinging. I think there's some aspects of the OU visit he liked better in Texas.
Interesting. Speaking of Oklahoma. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much, Jerry, for all the info. CJ, thank you for all that you do, brother. Looking forward to those reports coming from the Manning camp. Any updates on what's going on tomorrow? I know we'll have coffee and football happening tomorrow. Oh, Matthew with a super chat. He said, if UT could guarantee one commit, who would they choose? Thank you very much, Matthew, for Matthew. Let's not forget about Matthew's super chat. Thank you very much, guys.
That one's easy. That's DeCorian Moore.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I've heard Jerry talk about DeCorian Moore and some rarefied descriptions about how unique his talent is. So there you go. Thank you very much, Matthew, for the super chat. And thank you to Matthew behind the scenes, because he's the real MVP making this thing go. For Jerry Hamilton, for my man CJ Vogel on the road. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. We'll also have coffee and football tomorrow and the winning drive tomorrow. 4:15-ish to around 5:30-ish. You want to join us for that. Also want to thank our sponsor, Andy Ludicky, one more time for sponsoring our Wednesday night live stream. Until next time, folks, same time, same channel. Hook 'em horns.